like
30-40-year-olds with back pain or knee pain, they might require it.
Because it's like nothing's wrong with you, you just need to fix this. So go get some physiotherapy.
So that's a myth. Basically, physical therapy can be used for preventive measures as well.
If you look at women in tier 1, they're actually doing everything, right? They're not just managing the household.
So we try to take care of what is under our control.
I think for the longest time when we've heard of physiotherapy, we only think of, an injury. तुम अपना देखो, मेरे को क्या होना है? And I'm just like, no, you need to take an action. Hi, welcome to the Wellness Mixer. I'm Ambika, and on today's episode, we're talking about something that's pestered all of us, backache. I'm sure in our mid-20s, we're all facing these problems where we have neck pain, back pain, and we slouch and feel guilty. And if you're someone who's guilty of slouching, then you must tune in and you'll be pleasantly surprised. So on today's episode, we have Dr. Debdutta Mukherjee with us. She is a sports and ortho physiotherapist with 12 plus years of experience. And she's also a runner and classical dancer. I'm super excited to welcome her here. Hi, Dr. Debdutta. Welcome to the Wellness Mixer. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me here, Ambika. How are you?
I am excited for the conversation we're about to have and also a little tired because it's 3:30 in the afternoon and it's that time when we all need a little bit of coffee.
Sure. Absolutely.
Cheers to that.
And thank you for inviting me. And I'm very happy. I'm very excited about the conversation we're going to have.
It's my pleasure to have you here. So, what we're talking about today is relevant to so many women around us. And in fact, not just women, I think even for men. So why don't we start talking about what is physiotherapy? And I think for the longest time when we've heard of physiotherapy, we only think of, an injury, right? But I think it has a lot of prevalence in our daily lives too. So let's start with that.
Physiotherapy or physical therapy is basically a physical form of treatment. Now, it can be used for prevention, like proactively as well as reactively. And it can be used for anybody. We usually think about, like 30-40-year-olds with back pain or knee pain, they might require it. But that's not the case, like from children to like old people, or as we call it in medical terms, pediatrics to geriatrics, physical therapy is required. Now, physical therapy is a science, just like gynecology or orthopedics. And in physical therapy, we have different divisions. Like we have sports physical therapy, we have orthopedics, we have gynecology. Yes, we also have physical therapists who take care of mothers, pre-delivery and post-delivery. And then we have children also taken care of by the neurophysical therapists. We have adult neurophysical therapists. So it's basically a huge science with many, many divisions. And it can be used not just reactively, as I said, for injuries or when injuries happen, but they can also be used proactively. And they are an essential part of the entire medical industry. So most people who usually meet other consultants, most of them will need to come out and then meet their consultant physiotherapist as well, because physiotherapy is used in so many things, so many conditions.
I'm sure I remember meeting my orthopedic doctor for a consultation for backache, and then he asked me to go to the physiotherapist just after that. I'm sure this is a common practice because he's like, nothing's wrong with you, you just need to fix this. So go get some physiotherapy. And me being me did not follow up. So, and I think this is why I wanted to shoot this episode, because there's a lot of awareness that needs to be created around this. Okay, so I also want to do this one thing where I ask you a few myths. You have to actually tell me whether it's a myth or fact about physiotherapy or just in general, okay?
Sure.
Okay. So the first one is that physiotherapy is only necessary when something is wrong.
Not a fact.
Not a fact.
Yeah. So that's a myth. Basically, physical therapy can be used for preventive measures as well, like sports physiotherapy. We use it for a lot of athletes so that they can prevent injuries or at least reduce the risk of injuries. We use it for children, especially children with developmental delay, so that it doesn't amount to something more severe later in life. So physiotherapy can be used as prevention. It can be used for the regular population to avoid neck pain, back pain, a lot of aches and pains, really. And it can be used for the elderly population also, because one of the highest risk factor of death, a physical risk factor, is falls in elderly. And we usually don't even consider it. And one of the most important treatments that they need to undergo is physical therapy before they even have a fall or a fracture.
That's actually a very fair point, because I'm sure we've all seen our grandparents getting weaker and losing balance. And it's a very common thing to happen, right? That they would lose their balance and then get a fracture, which eventually leads to like ailing health.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's very common. Okay, this next one is, I think, going to be a surprise for everybody. But should we actually sit up straight all the time, like we've been told?
Okay, yeah. So this is going to be a surprise, and this is a myth. The entire conversation about posture is actually, it started way back in the 1600s. Posture was all about uniformity and discipline. It started in the military, and then slowly from military, it went into the upper echelon of the society, where people from the upper class, they actually used to sit straight to look more poised, which is why you see a lot of people even now, like from the royal family, like sitting absolutely straight. And then it was considered a class thing. So if you were slouching and sitting, it was crass. And unfortunately, even in today's world, it's actually means that. The problem is that it didn't come into the medical industry until, I think, the 1900s, early 1900s, because the entire concept of uniformity needed the backing of medical science. And the problem was that this was also under the control of the upper echelon of the society.
Yeah.
So there is actually no research or no scientific evidence backing this. And the first paper came out as early as 1967, where they said that bending forward or looking to your your paper, your phone, anything, even until now the research is going on. The last one coming out a couple of years ago, where they tested 238 people who were looking into their phones, whether that posture had any correlation with pain, and it did not. So the problem is not about the way we sit. The problem is how long we sit, because we are very active individuals. We were hunter-gatherers. That's how we've evolved. And we are supposed to be active and moving around. So I'll give you an example. If we actually tighten our fist for a few seconds, we're not going to get any pain. But imagine keeping it tight for a very, very long period of time.
Then it'll start hurting.
Yes, and then it'll start hurting a lot. So people are told to do the same with their backs. And imagine how much it would hurt if you keep your back tense for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is why one field where we get the maximum number of our clients from, the military, they always keep their back straight, right? They never slouch. And even then they have like very high levels of pain and injury. So it kind of shows us that posture is not everything. And it's also about your stress, your environment, how much of sleep you've had, your diet, and your history of exercise. Everybody who sits in the same position for a long time doesn't have pain. People who are fit have less pain or manageable. And people who don't exercise or work out, they have like severe pain that they are not able to come out, and they probably have to be in bed for a long time.
Is that because they've not built enough strength and endurance? Because when you train your back also, right? So if you don't exercise enough, you don't strengthen your back. And is that why it leads to pain?
So not building enough strength and endurance is just a very small portion of why they get pain. Yes, that is definitely a major contributing factor. So when we are talking about pain, we actually have this model called the Biopsychosocial Model. That means biologically, psychologically, and socially, things need to happen for the pain to manifest itself.
Okay.
Biologically, it can be strength and conditioning. It can be also your periods where you have pain. and you have a lot severe pain at that time.
Yeah.
Psychologically, if you're feeling low, you have anxiety, you're undergoing depression, you have severe pain. And social, your environment, are you comfortable where you're sitting? Have you slept enough? Have you seen the sun come out in the last 7 days, or are you sad? So all of these things can give you pain. So we try to take care of what is under our control, biological. So strength, conditioning, endurance training, they can all help tremendously in bringing down our pain. And then we take care of the psychological and the social aspect also.
Very interesting, because in a previous episode, we were talking about how this psychological stress can also manifest PCOS or like diabetes and other physical, ailments. And so this also brings me to another thing, that I've spoken to a few people who have anxiety, okay, and they have a lot of muscle stress. So their body is very stiff sometimes. So is that also the psychological stress is leading to that pain?
Yes, absolutely. So, our physical body affects our mental health, and mental health affects our physical body. And they all correlate with the environment as well. So, when we are stressed, or we are anxious, or we are depressed, like I'm just giving the basic examples, we are not resting, we are not sleeping enough, we are not eating properly, our nutrition is very poor. We are not hydrating well because we have other things on our mind. And on top of that, we are not strength training. This is horrible because currently, in the medical industry, mostly if you walk in and you meet a therapist, the first thing that they usually advise is medications.
Yeah.
But strength and conditioning, which is like the first thing which has absolutely no side effects, which
Correct.
can immediately boost your mood with endorphins, with serotonin. It can improve your health, it can improve your markers, it can improve your hormone health. That is not advised as much.
Yeah.
So if we know that exercise boosts our mental health, why don't we advise this for people like that?
Yeah.
And if you're talking about the physiology, how does it happen? Of course, if you are stressed, you're sitting in one position, you're not moving around too much. If you don't move around too much, the blood supply to those muscles reduce. If the blood supply to the muscle reduces, the oxygen that goes to the muscle reduces, and then the muscle starts to get pain because the waste products from the muscles are not getting removed. This is the similar kind of cramping or pain that we feel if we have been exercising for a very long period of time,
Got it.
or there is lactic acid buildup. So this is seen over a chronic period of time for people who have mental health difficulties.
And is there some kind of research that can prove that this is more common in women?
Women are and have always been multitasking. Women have had a lot of responsibilities which don't come out in the open, and a lot of people don't even understand how a woman's mind works.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, women has not even got a lot of help in the medical industry. Gaslighting is very, very prominent, especially for women. And often when women go up to doctors and they ask for any kind of treatment or medication, or they usually explain their condition, they are not even taken as seriously as men.
Yeah.
And when we look at the research part, only in the 1960s, I think, women were included in research.
Yes, this is
So
quite shocking. And after that also, they've not put in a lot of money
correct.
to research about women's wellness or health
Exactly.
needs in general.
Yeah. So if you're really talking about women, and in the 1960s, I'm talking about women from a different race. Like if we are talking about Indian women, or if we are talking about African American women, I mean, they were not even included in most of the
I'm
trials.
Sure, yeah.
So we have no idea how the disease, works in their body, how they respond to it, how severe can their, health be damaged by a lot of medications that we are giving them. And more often than not, women are having a higher dose of medication because those medications have been tested on men. So these are all of the reasons. And me being a woman in the medical industry, I realize I've gone through gaslighting. So I realize the anxiety and stress of just walking up to a doctor. It's so hard. There are so many barriers there. And on top of that, there's this very funny thing. I don't remember the exact numbers, but in the recent years, there were a lot of studies done on men's sperm, and there were not enough studies done on women's period pain. It just shows like where the money is going,
yeah.
and the problems that women face, they are usually not getting resolved. So, of course, there is anxiety, and there is a lot of, there are a lot of myths floating around. Women do not know how to be able to take care of their menstrual health, how to be able to take care of their hormonal health. And I'm not talking just about tier 2 and tier 3 cities. I'm talking about tier 1 cities
tier
also.
1 too. If you look at women in tier 1, they're actually doing everything, right? They're not just managing the household. They're also going to work. They're taking care of their kids. They're taking care of their parents. They're taking care of their in-laws. And in the end, for whatever little time they get, they try to take care of themselves. And in that moment, we will call them selfish.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is the case. And mostly women that I usually go ahead with treating, I always tell them to take breaks. And they are like, no, I need to get into the kitchen. I need to finish like making breakfast, lunch, dinner, prep my child to go to school. And then I take a break. And by that time, they've already had pain. Even if you walk into gyms, you'll not see a lot of women coming in for weight training because of all of the myths that surround. So imagine we are preventing women from having good health. And then when they come to the doctors also, there are so many barriers.
And you're right, the gaslighting is so common that even with period pain, that gaslighting is there, right?
Exactly.
Like period pain has been normalized. That's why endometriosis gets diagnosed at a much, much later stage.
Correct.
And if we're talking about strength training at the gym, I was discussing with Anupama earlier in the previous episode. I lived most of my life in a tier 2 city in Amritsar. I have not seen enough women picking up the dumbbells at the gym. So my trainer would also always tell me to do cardio, okay?
Correct.
So like jumping jacks and all of that. And for someone who's already slightly on the heavier side, I should not have started with jumping, right? This awareness came in much later.
Yeah.
Because when I started doing my research, I started reading more into it. But yeah, women were just not told to strength train. My mother's now strength training. She's 50.
That's
She's going to be
amazing.
51. And she's doing yoga. She's doing Pilates. And she's strength training. She's doing body weight training, which I think is amazing. Because women need to build muscle, right?
Absolutely. Building muscle is so important for women's longevity. I mean, that's the viral thing that everybody's worried about nowadays, like how to increase your lifespan. And it helps you with your hormone health. It helps you with things like PCOS, which so many women are suffering with right now. It helps you with diabetes and lifestyle management. It helps you with your cholesterol. It helps you with your heart.
Yeah.
And 1 in every 3 women is suffering with heart disease. And these are stats from India. And it's not talked about enough. We are talking about men and heart health. We are not talking about women. Women are dying silently because nobody even knows the symptoms of heart disease in women.
Yeah.
Like, for example, men usually have angina pain. Women have breathlessness. So it's usually dismissed as asthma or a breathing disorder. And a lot of women, like, they don't even diagnose that she has a heart condition
disease,
until it's very, very late, or she's probably
even if you
gone.
see the ads, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's just look at how marketing is done for like heart healthy oil and all of that. You don't see enough women in those ads.
Absolutely. Or maybe they're cooking the food.
They're using the oil.
Yeah.
They're always cooking
Yeah.
for something for the man.
Yeah.
And the oil is definitely being used for the man, but by the woman.
Yes. Because I don't know how people don't understand that women also suffer with heart conditions, and women have usually a higher pain threshold.
Yeah.
And they don't go to the doctor because of not having enough financial freedom, especially in a country like India. They don't have enough money to spend to go and meet a doctor for a consultation. So they usually don't go unless they're probably having a heart attack, which is horrible.
Extreme,
Which
right?
is extreme.
Yeah. But I think women in general, right, they've been taught that you're supposed to be sacrificing in nature. Put your needs in the end. Especially, I think, Punjabi women. They will, I think I've seen so many women around me not prioritizing their health, and they're not like 35, 40, like the kids aren't small, they'll be like 50, 55, they'll be like, मैं ठीक हूँ, तुम अपना देखो, मेरे को क्या होना है? And I'm just like, no, you need to take an action. Like, if you need a knee replacement, you need a bloody knee replacement, you get it done now. So I think
Absolutely.
women just, they've been taught to be so sacrificing, and they think it's a good thing that they think, okay, if I deprioritize my health, it's going to be beneficial for my family in some way. My son won't be won't have to, take time off from work to look after me. All of these things, I think I've just taught women to bear with it silently. And yeah, financial, even when they want to, right? If they don't have the financial independence, they're not going to go and knock at a doctor's door. And even when they do, the doctor's not going to, it's not a surety that the doctor's going to acknowledge their pain.
That is the sad reality. And unfortunately, we don't give enough importance to taking care of our physical health. It's deemed very selfish to take care of your physical health, especially for new mothers, which needed more than anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, she's gone through a major abdominal surgery. A lot of women who go through a C-section. I mean, like, you won't believe, like, if I tell you that a man has to lift a kid or like 6-7 pound weight after going through a major abdominal surgery. A man would never do that, but women do it all the time, and it's considered normal. And I think this entire normalization of medical conditions, saying that everybody suffers from it and that is why it's okay, is horrible.
This is such a common thing, because I've heard a man say this to his wife. So what? There's so many other women also going through childbirth in this very minute, but that doesn't normalize her pain, right?
Absolutely.
Like, don't diminish what she's going through, acknowledge that and be supportive of it. So I think that, and by the way, a lot of women have chronic back pain after they deliver, or even sometimes I think it starts during their pregnancy. Is physiotherapy helpful in those cases?
Absolutely. So the weird thing is, in India, prenatal and postnatal physiotherapy is not really popular, whereas it should be. We are running behind things which should come along with physiotherapy, but we are actually focusing on them first. Like, we are focusing on something like yoga, or we are focusing on movement. But imagine the mother is going to be lifting a child probably after a major surgery. If you don't let a woman lift weight before she gets pregnant, before she gives birth, how is she going to lift weight after, she gives birth? So that is absolutely, like, it's so weird. I just don't get it. Like, don't lift weight, don't do anything. This is another thing which happens in India. I mean, humans are the only mammals, and this is something that my mentor had told me. Humans are the only mammals where, when they are pregnant, they are told not to do anything. Okay, you will not see this anywhere else in the animal kingdom. They do everything. And this may not be a good example, but even our mothers used to do a lot of physical activity, or their mothers used to do a lot of physical activity, but at least they were slightly fit. So what is happening in today's world is women are usually in seated jobs, and then they go through pregnancy and they have no history of strength training. They are not trained. In fact, they are told to lie down and not do anything by gynecologists who are also not exercising. So one person not exercising is giving exercise advice to another person.
And they shouldn't exercise.
Yeah. And the physiotherapist is not even involved at all in the decision making. If you get out of India and you look at the world scene, there are physical therapists in the US. I have a lot of my friends in the US and the UK practicing, and they are pregnant. They are physical therapists. They are deadlifting. They are going through competitions. They are running on a regular basis. I know a lot of mothers personally who have continued to stay active, and they've had normal deliveries. They've not had any pain or discomfort, because, of course, if you are strong before you go into labor, you are going to, take over that strength and use it to raise your baby. So prenatal and postnatal physical therapy is the most important, because we are not just taking care of your strength. We are taking care of specific things that you need. Your body goes through a lot of change. There's a lot of load on your spine, and you will be carrying a lot more weight. So you need to learn how to be able to manage that weight, and how to get stronger, and how to be able to do everything after the baby arrives. From
Yeah.
lifting the baby to feeding the baby, because after that you're just going to have like sleepless nights and you're not going to have any recovery.
Correct.
And you're probably going to be recovering from a surgery. So this is the most important part. And other than this, also there are medical conditions like diastasis recti, where the abdominal muscle, actually there is some space that comes in between the
Okay.
abdominal muscle to be able to adjust for the baby. All women have this, more or less. Some have it more severe, some less. Women who strength train have a lesser chance of having medical conditions like this. And this can be very, very dangerous for women who are not into strength training, who are not into lifting,
Yeah.
because just stretching, just walking is not going to prepare you for the
Oh, no.
load that comes when you give birth.
And this is a very common condition, is it?
It's a very, very common condition, and it's not spoken about.
I was just going to
enough.
say I've never heard of it because I'm sure mainstream media just forgot to cover it like the other things you did forget. But yeah, why is it not spoken about? Because if it's so common, every other woman is going through it after childbirth, then it should be. And there is a way to decrease the chances of it.
Yes,
That
absolutely.
is strength training.
That is through physical therapy. So, physical therapy involves rehabilitation exercise. So, rehabilitation is exercise when you have an injury or when you
Okay.
have a medical condition. From there, we get you to normal. When you reach the normal position, from there you go ahead with strength training, which will be like 2 to 3 times your capacity.
Got it.
So first you need to do your rehab with your physical therapist, and then you move into strength and conditioning. So this usually does not happen for most women. And the number of clients that I see who come with 20, 30 years of back pain post pregnancy because they were never told to exercise, it's insane.